You'll have to excuse me. I grew up Pentecostal, so I'm used to like getting up and I would be like, stay right there, and you start singing again. But hi, everyone. I'm Marche. I want to thank the Sanctuary Boston community for extending this invitation to me to speak. I am continuously humbled by invitations to share my thoughts with all of you. I also want to give a shout out to the friends and family here in person and the folks who are online. You all keep me going, and I mean that in the most literal sense. There are 4 things I want you to know about me as I start this time with you. That doesn't mean this will be inevitably long, but bear with me. Number 1, it's been more than 3 years since I've spoken to folks in person. Number 2, I have pretty severe anxiety and am often like jumping out of my skin, even though it doesn't seem that way. So for both of those reasons, it might take me a moment to settle in, and I trust that it will all be well, and even if my voice breaks, and even if I have to take a few breaths, we will get through it. Number 3, I hate spoilers. You may have guessed by me naming this reflection into the multiverse that I love TV and movies, and we'll be talking about them today. But I want to assure you, I will not drop a major plot reveal at any point. But I'm going to sweeten the deal. If I spoil anything for you today, you have permission to DM me a spoiler of the 3rd Guardians of the Galaxy movie because it comes out Friday and I don't have time to see it for a few weeks. Which brings me to number 4. And the final thing I want you to know about me right now, I love Marvel movies. They are, in fact, my problematic faves. So if you're sitting there and you're like, 10 reasons why Marvel is like capitalist nightmare, I'm like, yes, but that's not what we're talking about today. Now, my love of Marvel movies is a fairly recent development, even though Disney has been releasing these movies since 2008. At the beginning of the pandemic, I had a lot more time at home than I was used to. I decided to fill that time by asking my wife, Melissa, to help me take on the brave task of watching every Marvel movie ever made. Back in 2020, that was 23 movies. And I watched all 23 movies based on the Marvel comics within a few months. Now, flash forward to 2023, Marvel is up to more than 30 plus superhero movies and related TV shows. There is a reason they've been able to crank out that many movies and shows since 2008. Superhero stories have a pretty predictable formula to them. The characters and settings change, but the overall story arcs don't. There is an origin story of how the everyday person becomes a hero. A villain who threatens the legitimacy of that origin story. A big battle that crystallizes the hero's legacy. The hero wins, but probably loses something along the way. And the world returns back to a place of equilibrium. The formulaic nature of Marvel movies was extremely comforting early in the pandemic. I needed to feel like complicated things could be reduced to a simple story. When I started watching Marvel movies in 2020, I needed something to be predictable. The world felt so topsy-turvy, I needed to know everything would work out okay. It somehow felt like if I knew that, that meant I would be okay too. But lately, I've been wondering if Marvel movies can keep holding my attention. I'm not so sure this formula is what I need anymore. I'm not sure I need the reassurance that I can predict what will happen as much as I need to know that I have what it takes to survive whatever comes. My interest in Marvel movies started to wane last summer. During that time, I was in my hometown helping care for a dear family member who was recovering after being very sick. I happened to be the family member whose work schedule allowed them to be most present in this stage of the family member's recovery. There were moments I felt particularly inadequate within my caregiving role. I was worried that I just wasn't the person she or my family needed. I'm often late. I think I was actually late here today. And when I'm anxious or stretched, I'm especially forgetful and I misplace things very easily. One night, I was alone and thinking about my not enoughness within my caregiving role, and I decided to watch a movie. I was all caught up on Marvel movies and was a little skeptical anyway about their newest plots involving parallel universes, cumulatively known as the multiverse. So instead of rewatching a Marvel movie or show, I reluctantly started watching something else about alternate universes. The movie was called Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. You may have heard of it. In the film, Evelyn Wang, a Chinese immigrant, tries to keep her family's laundromat business afloat. As an IRS audit looms, her marriage faces a crossroads. She cares for her aging and judgmental father, and she grows farther apart from her daughter. Pretty early in the movie, Evelyn meets a different universe's version of her husband, Waymond, who is sure that she is the one Evelyn across many universes who is supposed to save the world. Evelyn doesn't believe him. This Evelyn knows she is no superhero. Her origin story doesn't function as the catalyst for attaining superhuman powers to use in distant lands. She is a woman with very human problems, whose very human abilities are nothing especially notable compared to others in her life, or even compared to Evelyn's across the multiverse. Evelyn's journey to greatness doesn't involve any special serum or expensive weapon. Her adventures in parallel universes don't take her very far from her origin story at all. Any interaction she has with another self always guides her back home. Back to self-reflection she's been avoiding, and back to what she needs to address with her family. Her journey is less about her attaining some otherworldly skills and abilities than it is about her changing the relationship to how she thinks about herself and how proactive she will be in changing that thinking. Her sometimes self-deprecating and sometimes narrow thinking have stopped her from noticing the degradation of her connections with possibility and with her loved ones. Now, when my wife heard me practice, she said, "Are you sure those aren't spoilers?" Trust me, there was a lot of plot missing there. So, last summer, when I was sitting on that couch doubting how I could show up for my family members, Evelyn's story was pretty good news. Yes, I was still, and I still am, an anxious, always late mess. But family members were pitching in to track things that I would likely forget. And although I wasn't the most punctual person, my sometimes lax relationship to time also made me comfortable being flexible when I needed to change plans quickly. This came in handy when I needed to unexpectedly show up for people who needed me. I could make quick adjustments and be there for those who needed me most, even if I was sometimes a little late. I was suddenly sure my life was exactly as it needed to be in order for me to show up for my family in that time. I changed my story and perspective. And suddenly I was the right person in the right place at the right time. Evelyn's beliefs about herself change. She starts to honor the magic she couldn't notice because she had a simple story about herself and those around her. When she changed that story, she changed her multiverse. I get why the multiverse is having a moment right now. I get it. It's comforting to imagine a version of the world where our triumphs and victories exist absent of our heartaches. That there are timelines where all of us have figured out our struggles that we're having in the here and now. Maybe figuring it all out isn't as important as noticing what there is to be figured out. One of the filmmakers behind the movie, Daniel Kwan, said in an interview, and I'm paraphrasing just a little bit here, when you observe something for long enough, you can make anything meaningful. That's a desperate, dangerous thing, but it's also really beautiful. We need that right now because everyone is focused on everything and noticing no meaning at all. He went on to say, the multiverse is actually a really beautiful, important metaphor for right now because we need to be looking at all the possibilities, not just the ones that we think we're in. I'll probably keep watching Marvel's multiverse movies. That's not the moral of the story, because I'm 30 movies in at this point. Nothing if not dedicated and persistent. But I'm grateful heroes like Evelyn exist to remind me that I don't need to be an Avenger to traverse the multiverse. There are many versions of me that no longer exist, and many versions of me I've yet to meet. And each of those universes collide when I slow down enough to learn who I've been and who I have the potential to be. Everything, everywhere, all at once taught me that striving for a perfect version of myself is not the goal. Seeking the most present version of myself is. Friends, new and old, go forth and find the hero in you, and may our journeys toward our best selves and towards each other's love be our most exciting journeys yet.